Hello everyone, welcome back to Nagash. In this video we're talking about Dwarven lore. I just wanted to do this separate little recorder now before we go into the main video because I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that this video is a collaborated effort between me and a very nice guy called Poet, who is a very big enthusiast with the Dwarven races of Age of Sigmar. However, unfortunately, when we came to recording this video, everything seemed fine, but then when I'm in post-edit now, it seems that the voice recording on Poet's side of things has came out not as clearly and not as well as it did for me. Now, I did a couple of tests when we were recording, everything seemed fine, so unfortunately this is just one of those freak things that happened. But as me and Poet both put quite a bit of time into doing this video, I didn't want to have to redo this video. I think it's still the audio is still well enough, but if you guys enjoy this content enough, then maybe me and Poet will look at doing something similar to this in the future with better audio. But I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a heads up just to prevent you guys letting me know the audio is not good in the comments of this video. I know it could be better, but unfortunately we didn't know at the time. It wasn't because we were lazy. We did check and it just didn't show there was a problem, and now it does now. But all I will say is that just say to yourself that Poet is talking to you guys and narrating during this video whilst wearing the full uniform and in particular the helmet or a Kharadron Overlord. And with all that aside, let us go back to my past self introducing this video to you fantastic people. Enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is of course a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And I say Sigmar, but in this video we're going to be talking all things about the Dwarfs or Dispossessed or Fyreslayers or Kharadron Overlords of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And as this is a bit of a blind spot for me, as you may have noticed from the recent lack of content for all things Dwarfs, I have been very lucky to have a very nice guest join me today on the show, who is Poet, who is often a great member in the chats when we've been doing a lot of live videos lately, so it's fantastic to have you on the show. How are you doing today, Poet?
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm doing really well. I'm very excited to talk about our dwarven friends who have been, building up our order bastions all over the realms.
Exactly, you already know more about their lore than I do. But no, so like joking aside, so it's great to have you on, man. I'm going to ask you a bit about like your sort of story with the dwarves, although they're probably meant to be called, is it Dwarden? Is that the correct copyright-friendly term?
Yeah, it's Dwarden, copyrightable name for dwarves.
Dwarden, cool. So as the AOS Dwarden, so we'll be talking about them. We're going to be, in this video, it's going to be from a narrative point of view, because we've covered so much sort of match play sides of things, especially on the channel lately, of all the news we've got coming for 3rd edition. That we're going to focus on a sort of a narrative, and it's also something that I'm going to learn as well with you guys who's watching this video. So like I said, it's a bit of a blind spot for me, and I know Poet has a love for the very angry chaps. So it'll be great to hear. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about where the Dwarden were at the start of Age of Sigmar. What have they been doing since then, and then where they are now. And then we'll also be talking about the introduction of the Fyreslayers and the Kharadron Overlords. And we'll be talking about this in sort of a summary standpoint. Again, if any of you guys want really specific details on a certain thing to do with the KO or whatever, let us know that in the comments of this video. And then this video gets enough likes and you guys enjoy it and stuff, we'll maybe look into doing some more detailed stuff about the dwarves. So yeah, so with that, Poet, what made you like these guys? The little, like, what's the best term? So I've called them the little angry chaps, but that's probably defies the Fyreslayers more than anything else.
I mean, we are just an honorable race, even going back to the old world. We are, we have been about our technology. We've been about doing things the honorable, correct way. We use science for not only our protection, but our betterment. We make the best weapons, the best armor, and we've just survived, I think is the best word to describe the dwarf factions. We are survivors, if nothing else.
Durable, reliable, kind of like German manufacturing. And that's something that I can respect as a person who owns a VW. But no, so that's pretty cool. And it's like I say, just a trademark, isn't it? And all about honor, like you say, is quite a strong point for you guys, isn't it? And obviously the beard is a
Yes, you have to have the beard. And I have my dwarf beard going on. I want to put beads and stuff in it, but the wife won't let me. But they're there in spirit.
exactly. I mean, all I'm going to suggest is maybe reward her with a long holiday. She comes back and you have, in that time, enjoy the beads as much as you can. But with that, so what got you into the dwarfs then? Where's your journey started with them?
So yeah, it started at the very back end of fantasy. Like it was a handful of months before End Times dropped and GW blew it up that I got into dwarves. So I had a really small force, but I really loved the lore. I got into the Book of Grudges, how it's passed down, these familiar ties, these lineages. It was just fantastic, and how the Karax or fortress homes all interacted, how they took on their own cultures based on what they were fighting. I thought it was just wonderful. And I've just followed it into AOS. I love what they've done with the real divergence point for dispossessed Fyreslayers and Kharadron Overlords comes from their response to the Age of Chaos. And I love how that, going back to the theme of survival, took three different aspects, and it really makes sense. You have the fight, the fight response, the literal flight response,
Yeah, literal, yeah.
and then the survival response of this isn't winnable. We have to retreat to Azir, live another day.
Yeah, and so that's like you say. So that's interesting how it splits in three different ways, because this is, of course, with the Age of Chaos, very much started with that, and it's very much a situation of like adapt or die. If you can't adapt to deal with the horrific situation which the Age of Chaos was, after obviously the Age of Myth and enjoyment, where sort of the Pantheon of Order not established the realms, but sort of like colonized them best they could. Going into the Age of Chaos, like if you could not, like there was probably some who were obviously, like we say, like the Fyreslayers, more the fight side, but there was probably other dwarves who tried that method and it just wouldn't cut out for them. Like it just would not. So like for every
They tried to use the same tactics. It just wasn't going to work. The old ways didn't work. It wasn't enough. Like even our best fortresses, they got taken. The ones that were built pre-Age of Chaos, like they got overrun. Even the best of dwarven engineering at that time wasn't enough.
No, and then that's why something new had to. They actually had to, obviously, like you said, you got like the dispossessed who went into Azir, but you have like the Fyreslayers who had to really sort of change their way of life almost to
completely,
like their culture and everything. I mean, obviously they're you can see like heavily based on Slayers, but they're not as
Slayer models, but it's a complete culture now. It's not like, and we can get into that where that originated from, but that's where you see the Kharadron Overlords start to come out of the response. But Fyreslayers, there was a build to them. At the beginning of the Age of Myth, we had both dwarven gods still in existence. Ronni, who is the Smith god, he's often described as having black skin, like coal black skin, hair on fire. Like when he first found Sigmar, well, Sigmar found Ronni, but when Sigmar was showing him the survivors from the old world, he literally cried, Ronni did, at how little of the original dwarves were left. And these were dwarves. These weren't dwarves. These are actual old world dwarves that survived into the new world. So all of that old world lore is still valid for the dwarves. Like we still have that connection. We had dwarves that survived Archeon's end times. And Ronni cried, and forges, the greatest of the dwarf forges, came out of where those tears fell. And those were kind of the dispossessed dwarves that still followed, the way of the forge, these old practices. But others started to gravitate much closer to Grimnir, who was the more warrior god. And we have Slayers after that. We have Fyreslayers coming from modeling themselves on what happened with Grimnir and his battle that shattered him into... Well, it more shattered his powers, not really him himself.
okay.
They clarified that in the second edition battle tome for Fyreslayers, because in the first edition tome it was, the story of how he was fighting Volcatrix and he exploded, and they really left it kind of ambiguous. But in the second edition tome, they clarified that it's his powers that are being released. As you use them, they come out of the gold, they're being re-released. Think of it like the T-1000 scene from Terminator.
Yeah.
Like all these drips of gold are slowly going to start congealing back into Grimnir.
All right, and then that's why the fires. Obviously, that's why they're after this gold. I know this is going into sort of the conversation about the Fyreslayers itself, isn't it? But so they're the two different, kind of gods, if you will. They're the two gods that they follow. So you've got, I say they, very much you pick one or the other, isn't it? So the Dispossessed are after Grogny. It's the most arbitrary thing. So I'm trying to remember them. And then you've obviously got Grimnir, who I remember from because obviously he was a character in the old world, wasn't he? He was like the Slayer King. Is that? That's correct. Not
so
correct.
That's ungrim.
That's okay. There we go. Because this is
he
why you're here.
An influence there. So there was 3 big ancestor gods.
Yep.
Like dwarves didn't necessarily have like full-fledged religion in the old world. It was more of a veneration of ancestors. And the 3 really important ones were Grogny, Grimnir, and Valea. But we haven't really heard anything besides the occasional reference to Valea. But
could that be a
there's
future
no evidence
thing?
to show that she exists still.
Cool, yeah. Okay, yeah. So with that, so they had to adapt or fight, and then where do you say what was the position of the dwarves when the Age of Sigmar broke? Because obviously, like chaos almost reigned over the mortal realms. There wasn't really many places in the mortal realms that were not touched by the corruption of chaos. So when Sigmar comes down with his golden boys, as it was, his Stormcast Eternals, where are the dwarves?
So the dwarves are in 2 very important positions, especially if we're talking about the Stormcast specifically, because Grogny is the person who has created the various types of armor. He is the one who figured out how to reforge the old world's core into Sigmarite. He's the one who really designed how the Stormcast would function, obviously alongside Sigmar and Dracothian, but he's the one who engineering made it possible. And then even now with the new Stormcast and their Thunderstrike armor, that's the design of Grogny. That was on tap in case something like that happened.
Yeah, that's great. And you also see that. Yeah, you actually had the design because you've got like the imagery, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, you can see almost a more dwarfish depiction of Sigmar on the new flags. It looks very big, beardy. You normally don't see Sigmar face depicted like that. You normally see either Galmaraz or the Twin-Tail Comet.
Yeah, agreed. And it almost reminds me of like the front of like a Kharadron Overlord ironclad or something like that, like one of their big ships.
Yeah, the big metallic beard kind of look.
Exactly.
And I wonder if that's not a nod to Grogny's influence. And then the mortals of the Dwarven, specifically the Dispossessed here that retreated into Azir, they've been responsible for building the cities. They changed completely. They started working with the other mortal races. They saw that standing alone was literal death. So when they retreated into Azir, they started working with everyone. It's like, okay, what kind of defenses do the remnants of the High Elves need? What kind of defenses do our Dark Elves need? What kind of, what would work well with all these monsters and cavalry? Hellstorm rocket batteries, where do we put those? Like, they started working with all the other races, and the big cities, your hammer halls and stuff like that, those cities came from the dwarves. They built them.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting, isn't it? Where it's not just like it's a metropolitan city or something like that. It's literally like each of the races had a job to fill, didn't they, when they were building this city as an example. Like I know even to a point, this is more early on, but I know like some of them, Grand Alliance Death was used to try and help build some of these cities. And it's interesting as well to hear from the Dispossessed side where, like, I think I don't know if we use this term when we describe dwarves as kind of a whole, and it's definitely a term that I would use. Maybe if you're a dwarf player, you wouldn't. But stubbornness is something that's quite strong for the dwarves as an aspect of their character, and for them to kind of forsake that for the sake of survival by having to work with the other races. I mean, I can't imagine the dwarves and Dispossessed particularly like the idea of working with the high elves. Can't imagine that was something they were thrilled about. Or the other elves. Yeah. So
there's I think there's still a short story out there that you can find, a couple that talks about some of the initial meetings of these races, and like obviously the dwarves were, I remember, these 10,000 pages in my book of grudges, how am I supposed to work with you? But just over time, the reality set in that, hey, you're standing alone, killed everybody who tried to do that.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It kind of reminds me, like, I think what a lot of people can refer it to it in a different fantasy setting, but like if you've watched all of the Game of Thrones, and you kind of feel like there's so much politics in Game of Thrones and everything else, where it's like all the sides stabbing each other in the back, all that trying to be on top all the time, and it's just like there's literally an army of the dead that wants to kill all of you. Why are you still fighting each other? And it kind of feels a little bit like all of these races are a little bit like oh, we don't get on because of this thing that happened a long time ago and all that sort of thing. It's like, right, okay, well, at least we can all have a conversation despite the horrors of chaos that want to rip us apart. Like, so you can see how that was happened, and obviously how it needed to happen for the better for survival. So the Dispossessed, they came down. A big part of them was to help build the cities and to help really become part of a sort of a united front, wasn't it? And trying to make these like pinpricks of light, these little candles in the darkness of where Sigmar wanted to establish these new settlements and cities. Does that sound about fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the original foundings of your cities in Realm of Fire and in Ghyran, both of those were called, the Candles of Hope or the Seeds of Hope, and that was the goal. Like we have to go reclaim these realms. We are dispossessed, literally meaning to have been stripped of our possessions. So let's go get it back, and it's going to take a united front. We cannot do it alone. It will not work.
There we are, and it's sort of like also as anyone who's quite new to Age of Sigmar and you sort of knew fantasy before and stuff. Just to be clear, like the Dispossessed are the sort of more classical dwarves, aren't they? Like they're sort of like the models from the old world and everything else, and they're the sort of the standardized dwarves. And really, it sounds like a UN United Nation coalition into the realms of darkness, which is quite cool. So that's what they were doing. And then where are the FYRESLAYERS at this time? I mean, how did they react to the Age of Sigmar?
So to get to where they are in the Age of Sigmar, we were talking about how Grimnir blew up. They started hunting for the pieces of the Aether-gold, and they realized that we have to go deep into these mountains because it connected itself like power to the veins of gold, like it infused itself. So they needed to go really deep to get to these deposits of it. Excuse me. So when the Age of Chaos happened, they had these huge mountain holes that they dug deeper and deeper into and started using the magma, and it really started not just surviving but thriving, figuring out that, hey, if we use this type of tactics, if we imbue ourselves with these runes, because they started using Aether-gold just as weaponry. And somebody eventually, the first rune master, pounded out a symbol into the symbol of Grimnir, and they realized, oh, this gives us even more power. And that evolved to, what if I put this inside of me and activate it? And that's why there's the cutout runes on all the models. That's literally them imbuing themselves with a chunk of their god's power. And if you're fueled directly by a god, they were doing this in the Age of Chaos, not the Age of Sigmar. So they actually beat Sigmar to the punch of god-powered soldiers.
That's pretty cool.
So they were able to thrive and really start expanding and collecting. Like there's foundings of some of the bigger lodges that even happened during the Age of Chaos. So when the Age of Sigmar came around, the dwarves were like, okay, here's how you fight these guys, here's how you build these bastions that actually work, help us find Ur-gold.
Oh, so they were sort of like, so from their standpoint, like they've seen these people come down from Azir. The Fyreslayers have been making out on their own. They've had to adapt. They've had to like imbue the power of their own god into them to survive. And that's just like a day in, day out business for them, having to fight back, chaos and what other nasty things there are out there. And then they see the Dispossessed and the other forces of Sigmar come down from Azir, and they're like, the guys from Azir, like I said, the coalition are kind of like, right, we're here. And then the Fyreslayers are like, cool, we've been here for ages, right. This is how you survive in our world. Anyway, because we've given you that, we want Ur-gold. The kind of is like it's like, oh cool, you're here, right? Okay, how can you help us get this gold, and we'll help you survive.
Exactly. Like they looked at it as, oh cool, we have reinforcements that are going to help us on our mission. You should obviously be listening to us. We thrived during this. We did more than survive.
Yeah, kind of like it's from someone who knows like Iron Jaws lore, right? It is different, but like how like the Iron Jaws, it's kind of started off as normal orcs, and then they got so big, so massive, and so strong and powerful by the Age of Chaos. The Age of Chaos defied who the Iron Jaws are and made them what they are today, because they got power from obviously fighting and fighting and fighting, and from kind of a different aspect, it sounds like the Fyreslayers, from their need to be able to adapt to survive, it actually made them stronger.
Absolutely. I really like that analogy where the Iron Jaws got bigger physically, adapted their physicality to it. The Fyreslayers figured out how to do it mentally. That's very on brand for dwarves. I like that analogy.
Well, it's like I say, I don't know much about dwarves, but I'm clocking on how they work. But so that's the Fyreslayers, and then so talking about the Fyreslayers, right? So as someone who, like I said, I would know a general bit about their lore, and that's it. Obviously, one of the biggest things, and it comes in terms of rules in the game as well, because they can, or they used to be able to be mercenaries. Ages 3rd edition, may have changed all that, but the Fyreslayers are quite commonly known for basically fighting for near enough anyone who can supply them with enough gold so they can try and find the real gold to them within that being the Ur-gold. Just to be quite clear, is it Ur-gold or is it Ur-gold? Just so I get it right.
I've heard it both ways, but most of the audiobooks say Ur-gold.
Oh, okay, Ur-gold. We'll go with that because so with that, like I said, they will literally fight for pretty much anyone if they get enough gold so they can find Ur-gold within that.
They don't actually need to search through regular gold. The Fyreslayers can instinctively tell
nice.
if it's Ur-gold or regular gold.
That must save so much time. But
so they can just be like, somebody rolls a wheelbarrow up to them and is like, hey, we have all of this gold for you. They're like, yeah, that's just regular gold. The other races can't see it, but they know that if it's Ur-gold or not.
I mean, to be fair, if Ur-gold is literally part of them, as it's hammered into them, I mean, you would be able to recognise it quite clearly, wouldn't you, I suppose? And the other thing as well is it's like important, because I know dwarves are obviously seen as, in any fantasy trope really, greedy, they want gold, they not got all treasure, kind of almost like a dragon. Like there's a great analogy, isn't there? Well, example of Tolkien with Smaug and the dwarves of the Erebor and the Lonely Mountain. They collected so much wealth, the dragon came, blah blah blah. So it's a great example of how greedy the dwarves can be. The Fyreslayers are not greedy. I was just going to say, they're not greedy, are they? They're doing this to try and one day piece together their god.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to point out, because they are still honor bound. Like they follow a mercenary contract. They've worked directly for forces of chaos before, but it's still very honorable. We signed this contract. You have agreed to pay this. We have fulfilled it. Pay us now. Cool. It's still very honorable. But also think about what the end goal is. Look at how much Grungni has been able to contribute to the forces of order. In the Fyreslayers' mind, they're thinking, well, if that's what Grungni can do, building stuff, what could Grimnir do utilizing that?
Yes, like if Grungni can make a perfect weapon, how can Grimnir wield it? Isn't it almost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
So like, there's nobility there, and they're not greed. It's purely out of a selfless
Yeah, it's
cause,
a
isn't it?
religious promotion.
Yeah. So like, and it's like it's another example of how things in Warhammer isn't black and white as almost as evil and good guys in terms of like the Fire Slayers may have fought a battle or a campaign for the forces of Khorne, let's say the Bloodbound as an example, because they got paid them. But they're doing it because hopefully that'll help them in collecting of the Aether-gold to try and bring back God, who is going to do untold amount of devastation to Chaos in the fight to try and reclaim the realms. So like,
Absolutely.
it's all interesting, isn't it? And there's so much deep diving you can do into it. So yeah, I think that's a good sort of like talk about the start of the sort of Fire Slayers and what they've been up to, and then what would you say about the are they the newest? They were the newest, weren't they? I'm trying to think what came out before KO.
Yeah, because Fire Slayers came out real early in first edition.
Because I remember they were in the Age of Sigmar like campaign books, like Balance of Power.
Yeah, like they were in Balance of Power and Firestorm. Like they were well before KO. They were probably at least a year, I think.
Yeah, that's a long time, isn't it? And then you've got the KO, which is the most, I'm gonna say, controversial fantasy style of the dwarf. Because I know when
From
they
a non-dwarf perspective, yes. From a dwarf player perspective, it's the Chaos Dwarves. But yes,
okay, yeah, the KO, yeah, I forget, but then they may be coming back at some point.
I mean, they still sell them. That you can't get the best model, which is the war trains. Don't ever spend that amount of money, but look at a picture of a completed war train and tell me you don't want those back.
Oh yeah. All I can say is someone who's completely getting off topic. Someone who's spent more money in Forge World than they should have. I bought a Khorne Dragon, and legally I'm not allowed to play it on 2,000 points anymore. So that makes me very sad. But you can't have a model that's more points than half your army, which is sad. Sad. I mean, I'd argue the thing's too many points. But anyway, back to dwarves. Right. So the Kharadron Overlords. I remember when they came out, and it was almost like there was a dwarven bar fight going on. There was lots of split opinions, but I personally really like them, and I think they look. I like that steampunk sort of feel, and I think that it was just nice to see something fresh. Where the Fire Slayers were.
I loved it. I thought they looked phenomenal.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, the Fire Slayers, like, very different to, obviously, what dwarves normally like, but they look a bit like Slayers. You can see where it came from. The KO were like, yeah, this is brand new.
Yeah, this was it was barely referenced. There's a real deep dive, and I can't remember what it's from, and it's been killing me trying to find it these last couple days for this video. But there's a really deep reference in Warhammer Fantasy, excuse me.
That's right.
To the prototype designs of these airships. Like, there was these prototypes for these balloon-powered platforms, basically.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't until the discovery of the Aether-gold that it was technologically possible.
Oh, okay. So they had the idea in fantasy, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah, it just wasn't. They couldn't figure out how to make it sustainable until the discovery of Aether-gold, and that's when they were these. Again, because the dwarves, they're directly from the old world. Like there's not a split continuation there. Actually, the only sub-faction that has an original dwarf name from fantasy is actually in Kharadron Overlords.
What's that?
Barak is a Karak in fantasy.
Oh, that's cool. Well, there you go. So it sounds like the most extreme one, but really, it's actually the one that at least has a name that carries over. So that's pretty. And like, where shall we say, the Fire Slayers were doing it through nobility and honor to try and bring back their god in collecting gold. The Kharadron Overlords are a bit more focused on the profit side of things, aren't they?
Yes, and this is why I talked about Grugny going more towards the Dispossessed and Grimnir more towards Fire Slayers. There's not a need for a third dwarf god. because the Kharadron Overlords viewed the Age of Chaos as the gods abandoned us. They left us here. We had to do this. We survived because they got into their technology, went up, figured, okay, now we're safe because the Tzeentch demons, they can't get through our firepower, but we have to just make sure we're not just surviving. So that's where you get the code. That's where you get the meeting where all the captains came together, all the leaders came together. It's like, this is no longer based on heritage. This is now a meritocracy only. Your lines, who you came from, who you descended from, that doesn't matter in the sky. I said, so that's where we have the code come out of, is the meeting of the captains of wanting to do more than just survive. We have to live up in the sky. It became a complete meritocracy instead of heritage-based, because we need the best of the best to keep us floating. So that's where they started coming in. They started building out these ships. It became very entrepreneurial. Cities started to be founded again. The Kharadron Overlords were perfectly positioned to facilitate trade, because they had already been scouting where all these resources were. Where are the safe places to land and grab more food? Where are the places that we can get these types of resources? Where are the best ether veins, which would work a lot like jet streams would for trade now? Because if we have our fuel source right here, we can just keep following these back and forth. So the Kharadron Overlords were perfectly positioned to move into trade, and that's where you really see them appear a lot of the time in narratives. Is, oh, this place is under attack? Yeah, that's really valuable, so we're going to show up here.
Yeah.
In Be'lakor, for example, for the Broken Realm story, they really show up to help the city there with, man, Shaman is literally the realm of metal, so I'm not trying to lose this.
Yeah, it's like, mine's gone blank. It begins with an S, doesn't it? An S, doesn't it? The city.
I think so.
I want to say Sentinel, but that's not it.
Oh, no. Was it Vindicare?
Not Celsius, that's the Nime and the Stormhost. That's based there. Like, the City of Secrets, I'm pretty sure is what it's called in a different tongue.
Yeah, like one of those cities.
One of those cities that I should know the name of.
It wasn't Anvilheim, and it wasn't Excelsior, because those were Morathi and Kragnos's. I want to say it was Vindicare. Wasn't it the Siege of Vindicare?
God, this is almost embarrassing now. But anyway, so the dwarves that fly ships.
We're doing great on older fantasy lore.
Then suddenly it's like the latest book with the most basic city name. It's one of those. I would highly recommend watching 2+ Tough's Be'lakor videos to find out the actual name of this city. But I know. Was it I think I'm thinking of the Realm of Beast one. I'll be honest with you. But the Kharadron Overlords, I'll be honest, it kind of sounds like the Dispossessed, or the coalition of the UN represented by Sigmar, had a pretty handy couple of allies, where the FYRESLAYERS like, right, this is how you need to survive, and then the KO were kind of along the lines of, right, these are the best ways to travel around the realms, so you haven't got a realm gate. And you can fly.
Exactly. Like, even though they became the ancillary factions, like on a technical speaking point, because I can very easily argue and just look at the models, that the Dispossessed are your purest dwarves, like not dwarven, but dwarves, and then the other two offshoots, but they position themselves perfectly. And what I love about, in general, Dwarven lore in Age of Sigmar is how we got to these three factions makes sense, because it's all tied back to that. What was your survival response? And it makes sense that these divergent paths would happen this way.
Oh yeah, like just to be clear, the KO as well. I mean, I remember reading stories where it's like their Karak, their fortress is literally under assault by the forces of chaos, and it's one of those like last minute efforts of like quickly everyone to the escape pods, and then suddenly part of the Karak flies off from the ground and into the sky, and then that's where like the sky ports are formed from, isn't it? Like where the Kharadron Overlords have their cities in the skies these days.
Yeah, that really initial. This is a Hail Mary of a Hail Mary. Like, there wasn't, literally out of options. They had dug in as deep as they could go, and it was either run away into the skyships or die here right now. You might die up there, but you're dying here right now.
Yeah.
And they were able to, scrap together these different ships and function. And over time, they were able to build it up because the Chaos couldn't touch them in the sky because really only Tzeentch had the ability to get up there, and it couldn't get past their gunpowder.
Yeah, and that's why when you look at some of the artwork of these sky cities, that's why sometimes they look like almost like, oh, that's a funny like design to build, and the reason is because it's just loads of ships strapped together, and then over time it became a city, which in itself is just really quite fascinating and cool. And like I tell you what, the Kharadron Overlords as well, like I've got their battle tome, and like when you flick through and you see the artwork and you just see like things like this is what a giant whale shark predator in the sky looks like. This is what chaos dragons in the sky look like. It just gives you so much to add to your imagination of what's out there, because the skies is was a very new area to explore in Age of Sigmar, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's occasionally you'll get perspectives from your Star Drake coming in to attack something, but it's never anything as deep as you see. Like, they really are in their own environment.
And then they also use that to their advantage, didn't they? Because they chose to remain hidden. Very much.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, anybody who's ever played them on tabletop with the fly high rule will know exactly how good they are at hiding and coming down and hitting their target.
You can't see me. Bang! And then dead.
I'm right here, and look at all of my guns. Aren't they beautiful?
Aren't they pretty? They're even better when they're firing. Yeah, look at the pretty light. But yeah, so that's kind of where they came from. And then with that, so I think now that we've sort of established the where they were at the start, with the Dispossessed and the FYRESLAYERS and the Kharadron Overlords, how would you say they get on with each other? Because do any of them see themselves as like the superior dwarf, the one that won the race of survival?
So yeah, that's where you get into some interesting interactions. The Kharadron Overlords would not work with the FYRESLAYERS unless it would be complete desperation, because their view on what the world is so departed from each other. One is, we have to do everything in our societies about reclaiming our god. And the other one is the exact opposite. Nope, the gods abandoned us. They're no longer worthy of our veneration. So those two probably you're not going to see work together unless it's extreme desperation. But both of them, both divergencies, would come back to work with the Dispossessed. So like Kharadron Overlords are obviously with Tempest Eye in a major city of Sigmar, so they have no issue there. And you also see FYRESLAYERS ally themselves in a significant manner, not just in a mercenary faction, but in a significant manner with a lot of the cities too. So they will both come back and work with the Dispossessed, just they're unlikely, FYRESLAYERS and Kharadron Overlords, to work together. Those two. Yeah.
It's kind of like, it feels like the middle ground of connecting them is the Dispossessed, isn't it? Like, kind of, because that's where they split from, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, like that's the family tree right there. So they're likely to come back to work with the main group of dwarves, but they're unlikely to work with each other just because their viewpoint on the reason they're around is so different. As far as winners and losers, the Dispossessed definitely view themselves as the losers. They lost. That's why they're doing this. We are on a mission to reclaim what we have lost. We have taken the name Dispossessed.
Yeah.
And until we repossess, we're going to have this name. So they definitely view themselves as, that they lost, not like as losers, but like that they've lost. They've accepted that.
And that's quite hard to understand that pride. Presumably.
Yeah. And Kharadron Overlords do view themselves as kind of having won. I mean, they look somewhat down on other races for their lack of ability technology-wise. And the FYRESLAYERS are just on a mission. They're too driven to really care about, stuff that happened literal ages ago.
Yeah, that's it's quite interesting, isn't it, to have them break down? Because when I wanted to do this video, because I think we were chatting, weren't we? There was a quiz going on in the Airways Coaches video. and I didn't think I knew the answer to like a dwarf question. That's what spurred the idea of this video. And I was thinking, like, when we're going to talk about dwarves, I was thinking, like, to me, like, obviously I know they're different factions and everything else, and the different allegiances really in Age of Sigmar. And then, like, shall we just do a video on what are dwarfs in Age of Sigmar? But it's interesting, just to see the diversity, and not just like the model range and everything else, but this is how they think, this is their history, this is why they think like this is how they are now. And that's why I think it's important to, like I say, talk about what they were, and then really what they've been doing. And then is there any sort of, like, throughout the Age of Sigmar now, as there's been, I can't remember the timestamp they've given it, but quite many hundreds of years since the Age of Sigmar began. Is there any been, like, standout events that you remember for the for either of those races?
For let's see. Let's start with the Dispossessed, because they probably had the most advancement.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Kharadron Overlords, they kind of interact. They were already doing their own thing. They just saw an opportunity for more profit.
Yeah.
FYRESLAYERS are kind of been on their mission since the Age of Chaos, so the Dispossessed are really the ones that have progressed, is the word I'm going to use. But like I was saying, they're the ones who built the cities. They're the ones who, have equipped the armies. So that's what they've really been focused on. I mean, they've been building something that I hope we will get a model of, but it's probably like 40k people wishing for the plastic Thunderhawk. I want a plastic cog fort so badly. This is a really cool piece of technology, if y'all aren't familiar with it. Think dwarven engineered Howl's Moving Castle. And that's what a cog fort is.
And it's popped up multiple times in the story. Like, it's not like a sentence here or there. I remember the first time I heard about it was do you remember this little short stories that came out when Malign Portents was a thing?
Yeah, it was like somebody's name and other stories.
Yeah, so there was like a short story, it's like on the Warhammer community site, I think, and it was of one of the cities, I can't remember the name, I'm going to say Hammerhall, went out on I think like some villagers went quiet, or there was just a patrol with a cog fort. So they left the city, and then when it was quite far away from the city, they dispatched some like scouts out. I think it was like outriders or something. And I think I remember the reason now. They were going to the Realm Gate to Shaiish, so because they heard of like some strange magic happening there, so they went there. They sent some scouts out of the fort, the cog fort, to investigate this Realm Gate, and then the scouts came back dead, I believe, and then it turns out the forces of death were there, and then they basically used Curse of Years of people on this cog fort to slowly kill them. And it was a very interesting story, more than I'm making a sound of here. But the interesting thing about it was it was the first mention, I think, of a cog fort in Age of Sigmar, and it was like if the forces of death didn't have access to something like Curse of Years to make everyone inside Age, it's a pretty impregnable fortress to crack open, unless you're Marathi, where there is a new example.
Yeah, that's where we've been developing us from. We are now very excited about 3rd edition Dwarf players are, because we get into the Dawnbringer Crusades. And this is where I really think, and this is obviously, we're getting into prediction because Age of Sigmar 3rd edition is, 2 weeks old officially?
Well, yeah, officially, but I mean, people started talking about it on the internet from about 4 months ago, didn't they? So, but yeah, it's official.
We didn't have rules. That was speculation.
I mean, I think officially it came out last week, didn't it? Last Saturday.
Was it last Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, you told me you only got your Dominion box today, but it came out last Saturday.
I know. I only got my Dominion box today here in the US. Just now, like literally about 10 minutes before we started recording this.
Did you order it for GW?
Yeah, last Saturday.
Out of interest, was it Games Workshop?
But yeah, we had. It had to ship from the UK, I guess, is going to be their excuse. But anyway.
Yeah.
So we're very excited about the Dawnbringer Crusades because this is really where we're going to see a narrative focus on establishing new places. Because let's be honest, with the cities of Sigmar, they kind of gave it to us. And we're like, here's some backstory, they've existed, here you go. But now we get the actual, like, we're going to see the establishments of these places. Like, how specifically do you carve out these sections of the realms? How does this work exactly? And that's really what the focus of, at least for what we have now, is going to be the focus of 3rd edition, is, you know, seeing these places get carved out. Or, you know, the opposite of it. What does it look like for, you know, this WOG to come in and conquer with these crusade functions? It's going to be really cool and exciting.
Yeah, and it's just, it's also that, it's exciting in itself, but it's also, like you said, it's just that detail. It's like, rather than going like, and there was a global campaign going on, you enter your games in real life and it determined if Order, Destruction, Death or Chaos want to see who conquered such land, and then it's like, Order won, boom, there's some cities, there you go, they're established, everything else. And it's like, oh, how did they get established? Too many questions. And now it's like, right. No, here are the details of how you actually make a city. And because it's like, for example, you know, they're I've said it as well, like, you know, they're like candles, aren't they, in like a sea of darkness, these cities. And when you open like the Slaves of Darkness battle tome, when you realise it has like a map of territory, and you see like Hammerhall is one tiny point on a map surrounded by chaos. Like, it's literally ridiculous.
And I don't think they've retconned the statement. It's something like 80% of all mortals are devoted to chaos.
Oh yeah, like
it's something like 80%. It's just overwhelmingly outnumbered.
Like, it's huge. It's massive. And the thing is, when it's like, if it's so daunting, like, chaos has that much thing, and like, you're just like small little candles in the Sea of Darkness, like we say. How did you light that candle? Like, how, if you're like trying to like,
it's like, how did you do this?
How did you light this candle in the middle of a hurricane? You know, like the wind just blowing out. So it's like, how did you do it without a lighter or whatever? So it's just it's interesting to see that detail, and there's some amazing artwork. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have the piece on the screen right now, but it'd be incredible if I did, wouldn't it? But there's that artwork, isn't there, in the 3rd edition book where you have them leaving the city, and there's thousands upon thousands of mortals, and there's KO ships in the sky and stuff as well. And they're literally dragging chunks of floating rock with these massive chains to, I believe they're like almost the seed, aren't they, to make these cities.
It's phenomenal to see that detail. And it's like, oh, so this is, you know, like you were saying, it's more that specific interaction that I'm so excited to see. And we have the other thing to look forward to at the end of Be'lakor, excuse me. Been talking about dwarves instead of Belgar.
Yeah, close.
Be'lakor. At the end of Be'lakor, we got to see, and it's been confirmed now, Grugni is trying to help out the KO. Like, they might not accept him, but he was on the ship. He's what made
Be'lakor fly away, wasn't he?
No,
yeah.
No, not Excelsius. Vindikar.
Excelsius is the name of the storm host, isn't it? I think they're the night Excelsius.
Yeah. Those are the celestial vindicators at Vindikar, and then right, because Kragnos and Gordrak attacked Excelsius with the Knights Excelsior.
Yes, Kragnos and Be'lakor are not the same books, although they were very similar, but not similar, became very close to each other. I have not got them mixed up, but maybe slightly have got them mixed up. But
I don't have those two lead-ups to sieges and third act battles confused at all.
No, of course not. It's not like one was a giant demon creature, and then the other one was a giant destruction creature. Kind of doing the same thing. Exactly. Both beautiful models. And came out at the same time. But no,
about $120. Yep.
Yeah, for that same price.
I don't know what
I think Be'lakor was not too bad, to be fair. I was seeing, I was like, I bet they're going to make him really expensive. And they made him, for Warhammer, reasonably priced. And I was like, well, it's still not cheap, just to be angry. But no, so...
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was expecting it to be Star Drake price, and it was cheaper.
Yeah, awesome model, that Pellicle. But yeah, so there were KO there, and their god did come to try and show that. Well, they're sort of lost god because the KO. That's something to mention, isn't it? That they don't really worship their ancestors anymore, do they? Like,
no, they've completely sworn off their gods. Like they view, like I've said it a couple times now, but like they view the Age of Chaos, like the events that caused and happened during. As you are not worthy of my veneration. I saved myself. Where were you?
Yeah, why didn't you? Yeah, it's also I mean, it's not off topic, but extremely to one side is like also like we were talking about 80% of mortals in Age of Sigmar and the mortal realms are devoted to chaos. They didn't all want to be devoted to chaos, but their god Sigmar abandoned them. So it's kind of like adapt to survive, and that's what they had to do. So it's just really interesting getting that perspective from these, obviously these many different armies, and in particularly the dwarves, and also that detail, because Age of Sigmar, when it started, I mean, I'll say, the lore, I wasn't a fan of the lore. Not like, oh, this is the worst fantasy thing I've ever read. No, it's still right, but it was like it was just far too vague. Yeah, it was just so abstract, but they've done a fantastic job within, I'm going to say 6 years of like bringing it to where it is now. And it feels like we've had, realm changing events. We had Malign Portents and, the Soul Wars and everything else. And then we've got Dominion now. And I quite like Dominion because it's, again, going a bit off topic, but it's not, it's... So the Forces of Order obviously want to do these... crusades to establish new cities, and then it's sort of like the point is where they usually have to fight off beasts and stuff that are maybe in the way of where they want these cities and chaos and everything else. There's a very sort of like in Gur, there's a very sort of persistent new thing, which is the Cruel Boys, and it may seem like, oh, it's just like a new faction, how's that world or realm changing, and it's kind of like they're not. The Cruel Boys aren't there to wipe out all life in the realms like Nagash was in Soul Wars and all that. It's kind of just like, it's just a nice bit of change of story. It's not just tiring world-ending event after world-ending event after world-ending event, and instead of just focusing on these blockbuster, end game situations, it's nice for them to spend that time adding that detail. How does someone live in the realm of beasts? And all of these little things, which again, like, this isn't really specific to dwarves what I'm talking about, but it's just it comes up.
And it's the first time in all of Age of Sigmar going into third with these crusades that it's not, like you were saying, it's not God focused. It's not these, all power. Well, they're not all powerful, but incredibly powerful gods swinging at each other. It's not, the gods of chaos against the remnants of the pantheon. It's not Nagash trying to end all life. We're establishing a city.
Yeah. It's like, can we just take a moment to appreciate the architecture? Like, where is the architectural design here? Do you know what I mean? But it's also like, I think when I first read it, because I think they did it on a community article talking about the Crusades, and it was and they're saying, like, it doesn't matter like how many thousands they send out, only a few may survive. And I'm just like, we're not want to be one of those campaigns. God no. Like, if that's the hope ratio they have, like, we'll send 1,000 of you out and maybe 5 of you make it. Because you see the size of these crusades that I said in that artwork, for example.
Yeah, they're mass. They're armies. They're sending out full scale. Colonization efforts. There's not another way to describe it. It's massive, and like you said with the death rate, that just pounds home, especially to the races, to the mortal races that have lost, literally everything. This is them finally having, after, it's been hundreds of years since just the Age of Sigmar, if not longer, because we don't really have like a concrete timeline.
It'd be far too handy.
But right, telling us imperial calendar years is just too hard.
Yeah.
But it's been, at least a couple of 100 years, if not 1,000 years. I won't say thousands. That seems a little far.
I think they might have mentioned
somewhere in
that.
range.
I think they may have mentioned it at some point. The word thousands. Like, we'll hold off.
But anyways, there's been a significant amount of time, and finally these mortal races, after all of their sacrifice, after giving up their home, losing everything, completely reinventing how they live life to every aspect, they finally have enough of a foothold to start reclaiming it. And it's going to be the story of the mortals now. And this step forward, this one step forward that you made over here, it allows for the second. If you're successful there, like, it's just finally being able to walk forward and not just sacrifice.
Yeah. And it's about, like you say, it's the reclaiming as well, isn't it? It's to show that no longer on the defensive, but on the offensive. And I know, obviously, that's been shown when the Stormcast Eternals came down, but it's like, the cities were like a beachhead, weren't they? Into the realms. And it's kind of like, right, we've got a beachhead, now expand.
Yep.
It's pushing through, isn't it? It'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's, they keep it balanced. I don't just want to see, the flood of order just wash over everything. I don't want to see, I don't want to hear that, Shaman has been completely claimed or anything like that. I don't want that to happen.
No.
But I want to see this, this back and forth, okay, you established a couple over here, but then this cruel boy, Wah, wiped him out, so let's respond over there. And while you were moving troops over here, maybe the main city was under siege, so you had to push them back. Like, I want to hear the mortal story. And to take a line from Doug from 2+ Tough, tell me how the farmer is living.
Yeah, that's a great line. Great line. Because I'm not a farmer myself, unfortunately enough, but I can say that I can closely relate myself to a farmer than a demigod being in Sigmarite armor.
Like, tell me how the regular dude is, like, man, what's the bartender's life look like? How does he get his ingredients? Where does he find them? What's the farmer got to do in Gur to protect his flock? Like, I want, like, tell me these stories. Tell me the mortal struggles. And I think that's what 3rd edition is really setting itself up for. Is, and you can tell those stories, especially in the Crusade font, like, I'm establishing a city. All right, how are we going to feed ourselves?
Yeah, like 100%. This is like where we established the city, and the realm of metal. It's what's there to eat? Well, there's some fruit, but it's made out of steel. Like there's some berries over there, but humanly you cannot consume them. But it's like,
right.
but it's seeing how it interacts, because like I think they've done a good thing with the realms now, where they've made loads of maps. I mean, the core book is full of maps. It's fantastic, but I think they did the clever thing of going like, and this is the a map of like the realm of metal, for example, but this is just a small part of the realm of metal. The rest of it is no one knows how far it goes on for, which I think is great, because then it allows you to come up with like my Cities of Sigmar army, shall we say, heavily influenced by Dispossessed, obviously, being this video. But it's one that left this city and went west for 5,000 miles or something ridiculous. And it's like, and it's that they're off map, and this is what, and you can create your own map for it, and this is where you are, or you can pick a point that you already can see on a map and go, this is where my guys moved to.
I think it's just going to be a great thing to see those perspectives, and like something I really love, and I hope we see more of it in different combinations, is how Hammerhall functions with the Akshi half and the Gyran half, and how they interact with each other. The food feeds the Akshi half, the fire from Akshi keeps the overgrowth off the walls. Like, I want to see more of that. Like, what would that look like with, I don't know, like light and life? Like, could we be creating like huge mega growths of food if we interacted that way? Or like, what about Akshi and Shaman? Like, what kind of forges could the dwarves set up if you had the realm of fire and metal connected to each other?
Yeah, it's sort of like I mean, it's the wrong term for for this, because it's obviously not a globe, but like globalization. It's sort of like, by moving resources through realm, just to try and what are the benefits living in the realm of metal? Well, you can use the metal. There's the strongest metal in the realms. Blah blah blah. But what are the benefits of living in the realm of life? And it's like, well, there's this special soil that means things will grow forever, and you'll get the richest fruit and all that sort of thing. So, well, why don't we combine both aspects of that to try and make the best settlement possible? And it's all this that can really go forward, which is, again, it's very speculated to see what they could do with it, but I've got a lot of hope for it, as much as the people going out to establish these cities have got hope. So I think that's cool. And something I would say as well is, as we say, Age of Sigmar lore, and it's very much, it used to be like this, and it's still sometimes very, very few, can be quite abstract. But I haven't read, because I'm severe dyslexic, so I find it very hard to read, but I find audiobooks are fantastic, and I've listened to quite a few like Black Library novels for Age of Sigmar, and it's like, if I was to mention two, one I'm half reading at the moment, halfway through, is Dark Harvest, which is a horror novel, the part of the horror series for Age of Sigmar, and it's set in Gairan, the realm of life, and it's about a chap who was used to be a priest of Sigmar, now he left that, doesn't think Sigmar's worth dying for, basically, and is now like a private mercenary, and he travels through Gairan, through like a swamp area, and he goes to the swamp because he's looking for an old friend. That's all I'm going to say about it. But it's very dark. It adds so much perspective, and you're seeing it all from a human traveling through Gairan, and it's like, if you thought the humans and the Seraphon get on, not Seraphon, Sylvaneth, boy, you in for a surprise. And it just shows how gritty it is. It's so easy to get lost in like, that's just one guy in my army of 100 free guild, as an example. So there's that, and then there's like another one was like a Neferata, the Dominion of Bone, where you have a fantastic perspective on how people live under vampire aristocracy. So like, this, and I know this isn't
a great example is Red Feast, where you see how these tribal societies might have fallen to a chaos god. Like Red Feast is phenomenal for another example like that. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. Because I haven't read it, but I remember seeing a picture. It's kind of like Blood Reavers, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's like a kind of hoplite looking Blood Reaver.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this is old lore. This is like first edition Battle Tome of Blades of Khorne, or Bloodbound as it was. And it was, I remember something along the lines of like, when a Blood Reaver warband takes over a village or a tribe, they will like point at someone who they've captured, and they'll say, right, you can survive and join us if you eat the heart of your best mate.
Yeah.
And things like,
my wife plays court, so
yeah, it's
still true.
Like, oh, that's I mean, like, obviously it's very sad, but I mean, like, it's awesome as it being something that doesn't exist. And that
should tell you how excited we are for third, because we just pulled examples across literally 6 years, and we have what, 4 really concrete examples of it that we could think of.
Yeah, and there's countless more, and I understand if people watching this, and it's kind of like, they stopped talking about dwarves 10 minutes ago. I get it, but it's all about adding perspective to the realms the dwarves live in. But it's cool, and like with the Dawnbringer Crusades, there's like in that picture, I'm gonna have to find the artwork. It will be somewhere in this video. It'll be somewhere. But when they're putting the chains and they're leaving the city and that new artwork, there's also loads of Kharadron Overlord ships above. So it shows, and I think like the Lumineth are helping levitate those floating islands and stuff. So it's all like really everyone coming together to try and make. It does really feel like a Grand Alliance order for the most part, and it's like the next chapter where the dwarves sort of like helping out the Grand Alliance order, and maybe the Grand Alliance order becoming more whole again. Excuse me, Raffi. Whatever she's up to,
but she's now like a whole god, so her jealousy might not be that bad anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember like in the Marathi book where she became the god, and it's kind of like the lantern, the soul lantern for the Deepkin, and it's kind of like, this thing I stole to achieve what I needed, you can have it back you guys can go.
There's
like no bitterness.
To a new benevolence, because there's no way the old Marathi would have ever done that. She would have just smited them.
Yeah, and then the Deep Kin were kind of like, well, we got what we wanted. Clearly, you're a lot more powerful now. We're going to go back in the sea. Then we'll see you later.
Thank you for not telling us.
Yeah, exactly. So it's there's so many examples in like the lore of AOS going forward, and it's something that I'm going to be not like especially on the channel, but just like in my own personal hobby, I'll be playing a lot more narrative battles and stuff like that now. Be working on a Path to Glory campaign soon, and you just want to, rather than like when you were playing the narrative when Age of Sigmar first came out, and you had to, I mean, you enjoy it, but you have to do so much work in creating the story behind what your armies are doing, to now where you can fit your armies into the existing narrative. It just feels so much nicer, and you can still have so much freedom as you want. So it's something that I definitely want to dive into, and it'll be interesting to see where the next chapter of Age of Sigmar takes us. But so with that, talk about the dwarves, where they were, what made them who they are, what they've done, and where they are now. Is there anything else you'd like to add about? Anything else you'd like to say?
Just thank you for having me on. I mean, this has been a great chat. It's a rare occurrence when you get to, especially in the closing days of the global plague, that you get to spend so long just talking with a good soul about a hobby you like. So, man, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the content that you continually put out, and thank you for, being a part of mine and so many others' hobbies. And if y'all have not liked and subscribed to this channel and liked this video and hit that bell, you really need to do so, because this is just a genuine person putting out content about something he loves. So why not support that? And you'll have I was just a community member on, and he brought me on for a video. Join the Discord, be a part of this community. It's rewarding, and it's people that, kind, good souls. So thank you.
You know what, Poet? I'm going to have you on every single one of my videos, so you're going to say nice stuff like that. Thank you very much for your kind words. And really, what Poet has said is true. I mean, obviously, everything nice said about me is fantastic. I'm not going to deny. But the community we were going on the Discord. I mean, I always get. I mean, you probably heard a beep there, and that's probably my Discord going off. I always get, I don't know, picked on in my Discord for not mentioning it enough, because there's so many people in it that love it, and obviously want to bring more people than we can in it. And exactly I was very happy for yourself to be on this video. Thank you very much, Poet. I do hugely appreciate it, and it's just a fantastic also have conversation with you, and just when you said in this crazy world of where we are right now, Nurgle, stop being so overpowered, not in the game but in real life, Jesus. But you need to be able to talk about dwarves for an hour and a half or an hour, however long this video has gone for. You need to be able to do that, as it's great for just escapism. And I've always said, the hobby is great for a release of mental health, as an example. It's huge.
And y'all, this is a bunch of grown adults playing with very expensive army men. It's a hobby. If it's stressing you out, don't let something that's this fun, this engaging stress you out. Do your hobby how you want. They're your models. They're your very expensive army men. Do you. Have fun with it. Let it be a wellness tool. Don't let it be a stressor, because this is a community that, we love what we do. We love playing with our toys. And, be kind to each other. This is a game.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, it's a game.
Exactly. I couldn't say it better myself. Be like the dwarves and hold no grudges. So that's it, guys. So if you got any more questions or anything about the dwarves, put it down below, and I'll be happy to try and answer you best I can. So I've got a bit more knowledge on it now. And don't forget to, obviously, if you do enjoy the video, like I always say, smash the like button, the subscribe button, the bell notification. Pert has already told you why to do all these things, but I'll say it again. So by liking the video, it shows to me that you like this sort of narrative content, which I haven't done for a while, and lore, and obviously you like the dwarves. And when I see the likes, at the end of the day, I make content that you guys enjoy the most, because obviously content takes time to make all of it, so I'd rather use my time more effectively to make more content you guys enjoy. So by liking the video does that. Also helps the channel out on YouTube because it helps recommend the channel to people who may not have seen Age of Nagash before, and then they'll see that, oh, what's this video about, West Dwarf lore, whatever I call it, and then they click on it and then they find the channel and hopefully they're here to stay. So that would be amazing. If you could also smash the subscribe button, as I always say, as that is how the channel grows again today. We hit 6,000 not long ago, and now we're already over 6,300. One day, hopefully not too long in the distant future, it'll be 7,000, and absolutely amazing. And even if you think you subscribed, you could just double check for me, because sometimes YouTube likes to unsubscribe people for some reason. And if you do press subscribe, I will love you forever. That is an Age of Nagash guarantee. And then thirdly, if you could smash that bell notification, it's probably what the channel falls behind on the most on the channel average. Trying to get people to press the bell notification, but if you can, number one, helps out the channel massively, but number two also means you'll never miss a future video. So if you do enjoy the videos, and if you are watching this video at this moment in time, you go all the way to the end, I presume you do enjoy the videos. So if you press that bell notification, that'd be amazing. There's a link to Discord down below. Like I say, join it. There's loads of conversation going on about news, lore, hobby, loads of painting, and a crazy amount of painting that makes me feel bad because of how much work everyone else is getting done. But join it, it's amazing. And if you feel like you would like to share this video with someone, don't forget to do that as well, as that would be great. And something else I do want to say is that if you would like to support the channel a step further, I have actually got a Patreon and a YouTube membership scheme. And what that means is if you click the join button next to the subscribe button, I'll allow you to become a member here in Age of Nagash, where you can give anything from just £1 a month that goes straight towards the channel, keeps the channel going. And there's also a link to my Patreon down below, where you click on it and you give anything from just $1 a month. And I know that sounds really quite small, but literally that's how the channel keeps going. It's like I said, if YouTube was like a business or anything for me, you'd be losing money every month. But by the sheer amount of support these people give me on a personal level, shows to me that I can justify all the time, resources, and everything else I put on into keeping this channel going. So these people are amazing, and I'd like to say a special thank you to yourself as well, Per, because I know you do often chuck money towards the channel in the things like the live videos and stuff. So that really does mean the world to me. So thank you very much. Special thank you to you. And if anyone would like to become one of these amazing people, like I say, the join button and the link to my Patreon down below. But I do want to give a shout out to my biggest supporters who made this fantastic decision, which is going to be my Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, who is Filq, who is my biggest supporter. So thank you so much, Filq, for your continued support. Massively keeps the channel going. Thank you so much. And then my Morgasts, who are Bleed Red, Necropolis, and Edward P. So thank you to all my Morgasts, as that is a very generous amount they support the channel with, especially to Edward P, who is a new patron. So thank you so much for deciding to do that. I had a conversation with you a few days ago and stuff. It was very nice to chat to you, and thank you for making that decision. It was great. And then my vampires, who are the core that keeps the channel going, is going to be Mir, Ben C, Rouse321, David A, Dragoonity, Ronni H, Darren L, SpareBear, Krista H, Northdrop, Nathan F, Andrew G, Wiggy Whooty, Anthony R, and Nathan S. Thank you all so much for being my vampires. And then, of course, my Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Cranky Wombat, Madcap, Krista C, Krista F, James S, Thomas B, Steve T, James T, Patrick F, JJ, R Christopher, and Sception. Thank you all so much for allowing me to keep this up, and really trying to help spread the community that we all love and enjoy at the end of the day. And before I say my last few things, I'm just going to hand you over to Poet, who, as his name suggests, has actually made a poem that reflects which one of these dwarven factions would you say this, or dwarden I should say, factions would you say this reflects?
Probably the intensity of the FYRESLAYERS the best.
Cool. Well, with that, tell us about this poem.
Yeah, so it's a piece of one of the poems from my newest project. I am legitimately a poet. I've won 8 national awards and use my experience in art for working at my day job, which is mental health using the arts. So I do legitimately create quite a bit of poetry. And we were talking before we started recording just about that, and I had something kind of intense, so I wanted to, possibly share that. And Age of Nagash has been kind enough to, let me. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much, and I hope y'all enjoy this snippet. We need the powerful voices to step forward and speak the words of truth, armed with pins in the clip, ready to rip up the talking points and score our own. Like a fourth quarter comeback convention, the intervention of intellect about to make contact and shake founding boots. This is facts manifested. We are invested for equal. Flashpoints means no peace and therefore no sequel. This cannot cease. No trends, just threads. Spitting out the lyrical bullets from this mouth rifle, zeroed in and on point, and just like that, put the period at the end of our statements because we mean and meant it. No doubts. We scream and send it.
Fan-bloody-tastic. Thank you very much for that, poet. That's really nice and a really good enthusiasm for anyone who's got your dwarves special. Like I said, dedication mainly to the Fyreslayers of that one. Hopefully that'll give you a bit of an oomph at what's probably been like about an hour long video sort of thing. So thank you for giving us that inspiration, poet. That's great.
Thanks for having me, good soul.
That's right. That's absolutely fine. And who knows? Maybe we'll have you on the channel another day at some point. We'll sort something out. And if people, like you say, enjoy this sort of narrative content, let us know. It's always great. This is when I've done lore videos before. It's sort of reading very straight, the lore and all that sort of thing. But it's been quite nice to have a discussion, to talk about it and everything. And it hasn't just been straight from what is known and what is written. It's nice to talk about these things. So it's been fantastic. So I hope everyone else has enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you did, smash a like, subscribe, bell notification. That's amazing. If you can support, become an Agent Nagash member, Patreon, that would be incredible. But if you can't do that, the biggest thing I'm glad really is that you came and watched this video today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. Remember until next time to stay safe, stay hygienic, make sure you wear a mask, and for God's sake, wash your hands, because it means that when you flick a page of the lore that you're reading and you turn over to the new page, whatever you want to hear, what's going to come from the book is what you're going to read, because you've got nice clean hands. And then, lastly, and more importantly, is that remember that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.